Michał, it's a pleasure to have you here at Next World Forum, delving into the ESL Pro Tour. We're going to delve into Counter-Strike 2. Well, eventually it's going to come this year, isn't it? But firstly, I kind of want to talk about your role right now at ESL FACEIT Group and how it kind of relates to the esports ecosystem. So could you detail that?
Yeah, so I used to run Intel Extreme Masters for a good number of years, probably a decade. But I've moved on to product development, which means essentially designing or redesigning some of our products. So the ESL Pro Tour as a construct is something that I've been involved with. The Intel Grand Slam is something that I've been involved with in designing, redesigning. Recently, I've also taken on the role of executive producer for our Counter-Strike broadcasts. So I'm also involved in designing of stages, designing of shows, things like that. But more on the creative side rather than the executive side these days, simply because that allows me to do more of the creative stuff. So if all my duties are creative, and I don't have to do any of the, let's say, logistical aspects of running events, then I get to do more of the stuff that the company thinks I'm good at.
So let's talk about CSGO to CS2. Firstly, with that transition, how do you feel like that transition is going to go? Because right now we're seeing player numbers and player viewership rising in CSGO. Do you think that's something going to continue now with CS2?
I think if you actually study the curve over 10 years for Counter-Strike Global Offensive, it went up, then it stalled, and then it went up again, and it stalled again. So I'm not one of these guys who will say that absolutely 100% definitely it's going to skyrocket, change everything. It's going to increase the number of players available, as an audience to us, and in general as the CS audience. It's going to make Counter-Strike bigger, more popular. Obviously, it's fresh. It's going to bring new people in. Think of it as a kind of, let's say, a fresh start to the franchise. It's going to open up new opportunities, but is it going to usher a new golden age of esports? We will see.
Yeah, I want to talk about how the change, though, is affected from more of a structural standpoint as well. So Valve recently came out with the news that they're starting to end partnered leagues, essentially, and obviously with ESL Pro Tour and ESL Pro League having a partnership program and partnership system. Could you detail how that's now going to have to change and the process that you've had to go through to change that?
So the details are not fully fleshed out. Those changes will come into play starting 2025. What is currently established is that the predominant number of participants of any event above a certain, let's say, prestige line will have to come through the Valve's ranking for Counter-Strike or open qualifiers. Which is a change that I interpret as Valve trying to make the top tier of Counter-Strike more accessible to up and coming teams. Certainly, that is a change that everyone's going to have to adapt to, because a lot of the calendar, or actually from the beginnings of time in Counter-Strike, we have had a large number of invites in literally every tournament, based on the premise that certain teams don't really need to prove that they deserve to be invited to a certain event. So Navi was simple, a perennial, let's call it top 8 team, probably doesn't, common logic would suggest that they don't necessarily need to prove to anyone that they deserve to be in. But I think it's been ever since the introduction of the Blast Partner Program and ESL Partner Program, it could be argued that in some ways it's become a little bit more difficult. Although I I would say that in the ESL world, it was still quite open because we have ESL Pro League with 32 teams and less than, over half of those slots available are available kind of open to teams. So technically you have to be a top 16 non-partner team to make it to ESL Pro League, and then you can play. So for us, it's not even a massive change from that point of view, because we have been running a predominantly open tournament ecosystem. But our relationship with the teams that was established at the right time for the right reasons will now have to change based on the Valve requirements.
So from the community reaction that I've seen from the changes, there seems to be kind of two camps. You've got the competitive opportunities, which a lot of the community say is going to increase now because it gives more teams opportunities to compete, I guess, at higher levels. But then from an organisational standpoint, there is fears that it kind of could limit revenue opportunities because there is less of an opportunity to potentially guarantee a spot in a certain league in a certain system. How do you find from that organisational level that ESL can continue to support teams outside of a partner model?
I think, and we've been fairly public about our intentions. We haven't gone into specifics because the specifics are being still refined, but we can support teams essentially by offering participation bonuses that are, merit-based, kind of in real time at that specific event, versus creating long-term agreements with teams. The long-term agreement, the difficulty now in creating long-term agreements with teams is something that affects the predictability around our events, I would say. So, being able to say that Simple and Navi would play, or Team Liquid or FaZe Clan would play in our events in the foreseeable future created a certain level of predictability that generated an actual benefit for EFG or ESL. At the same time, if the rules are the same for everyone, that's okay. That's okay. We just have to adapt and live with it.
Mm-hmm. What I find very interesting with Valve's new stance going into Counter-Strike is that I feel like compared to other developers, they've given off this vibe of being very laissez-faire in the sense of quite hands-off, but this seems like a shift in that, in the sense that they seem to be going to be a little bit more hands-on with the ecosystem for Counter-Strike 2. Does that mean that there is possibly going to be more communications with the likes of ESL FACEIT Group and Blast with Valve? And have you already seen kind of communications be a little bit more open compared to maybe what happened with CSGO?
So I'm only going to, let's say, speak to the information that's out in the public, but we talk to Valve regularly. Valve generally seem to be taking an approach of they prefer to be hands-off. I would describe it as a little bit it's a little bit like tweaking a physics engine in a game, where they set up the right rules and then expect the players to figure out the right rules. So they tweak the gravity a little bit, they tweak the friction, they tweak the movement speed, they tweak the parameters that are that influence the physics of the game deeply, and then expect the players, meaning us and Blast and everyone else that runs events, to adapt to the physics. But I am not getting the impression that Valve have changed their attitude to their involvement in general in the ecosystem. There's nothing that I see that would suggest that. They just came in and applied a new physics patch, if you will, to the Counter-Strike ecosystem. And then they'll observe whether or not the changes are having the effect that they desire to have. That's how I interpret what they're doing. but you have to really speak to them to really find out.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. The last question is that we're here at Next World Forum, so I wanted to do a little bit of a play on words with the word next. So what do you think is the next big development in the esports industry?
Oh. Listen, anyone that with chest forward, great confidence, gives you stories about the future of esports is more likely to be a charlatan than know what's going on, because esports actually, the development of esports hinges on creativity. So it's not very linear. But it's in spikes of creativity, which is unpredictable. People figuring out a new genre or a new style of gameplay or something like that. If you think of the big jump when the MOBAs or Dota, League of Legends came out, and that gave a huge jolt of energy to esports that no one was predicting at the time, right? So. The next big thing is the unpredictable development of a new genre of some kind that will open up esports to a new audience, to a new number of players, new number of people that will play, and we just need to be ready for the unpredictable, and we need to be ready to seize the opportunity that arises from that event. I don't know what that event will be. If I knew exactly, then I would probably start my own company and then sell it for $1 billion down the line. But yeah, the next big thing is going to be interesting, but I have no idea what it will be.
Thank you so much for taking the time, and I appreciate the insight into what's going to happen with Counter-Strike and Counter-Strike 2, and eventually it's going to come out this year. That's what they said. So
this summer, they said
this summer. This summer. Well, not that many more months left to go in the summer, so I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.